Dear Virgin Trains. So here's a story. I was asked to chair a conference on autism and technology because I myself have Asperger's syndrome, which is a form of autism spectrum condition, for anybody who's not familiar with it, I'll leave a link in the description below or in the card above so you can check out more about Asperger's syndrome. But very simply, it's a condition that impairs social interaction. It causes a lot of anxiety. There are a few problems that come with this condition. For me, public transport's always been an issue. I get travel anxiety when I travel anywhere in the world, but especially on public transport. So the kind people at the National Autistic Society who was hosting the event sorted out for me and my family to travel down in first class on a Virgin train from Holyhead, which is the town where I live, to London Euston, and then a private car to pick us up from London Euston to take us to the event. That's cool. This was already stressful because I'm travelling across the country for a good 3 or 4 hours, and I'd have to do the same trip again the day after to come back home, and staying overnight in a strange hotel without the things that I know and that I'm in routine with. Again, this is something that's common with Asperger's syndrome. It's a little unsettling and unnerving. So we get on the train and everything's okay. We managed to get our seats because the seats were reserved, because obviously this is a big issue. As long as the reason we were in first class is because it was quieter, we could have reserved seats, and that there's only usually about 18 seats maximum in first class, so it's very quiet, and it's less stimulating, and there's also visors, so you can pull the sun visors down if I get sensory overload, and there's also aircon in there which keeps it at an ambient temperature. These are all things that could set off a trigger and cause me to have some kind of episode of meltdown, which we try to avoid at all costs. So everything's going smooth, but the train gets to Chester, which is kind of like halfway in the journey time-wise, and about 5 minutes before the train stops at Chester, we have an announcement saying that the train is terminated in Chester, which means that it's not a direct train. Now, the reason we got this specific train was that it's a direct train. It goes from Holyhead to London Euston, just a 3 3/4 hour journey straight across the country with no changes, because the changes are very confusing for me. The changes disrupt my whole flow, and it's very stressful, and it's not a good thing. And anyone else in my family have ever travelled with me, it's not a good thing. This is why we took this specific train, right? So we get to Chester and then get kicked off the train. So then we stood there like, what the heck do we do now? And so I went over to the service agent person, and we said, well, what do we do? And they said, oh, well, there's a bus coming that'll take you to Crewe, and then you can get the connection from Crewe to London. I said, well, do our first class tickets still hold up on that train? And they said, well, I don't know. I said, well, what about our seat reservations? And they said, well, I don't know. So there's no guarantee that our seat reservations would be there in first class or anywhere on the train if it was packed. So, how on earth are we supposed to get on the journey? We paid this money for this ticket. So I was like, this is really bizarre. I can't do this. So there's any other options? She said, yeah, you can get a train from here to Warrington, and then Warrington to Crewe, and then Crewe to London. Again, that's like another, 2 or 3 trains that we have to get across. Again, no first class, and there's no guarantee of seat reservation. So this is really worrying me. So after a while of like panicking and freaking out, I spoke to the organisers at National Autistic Society and explained the issue to them, and they said, look, we're just going to send you home and cancel your trip to the event because there's no way you can get there. So I was like, okay, after a lot of upset and stress because of the fact that I'm not going to be doing what I was supposed to be doing, I'm not travelling down to do this event, this upsets my routine completely. We then say to them, okay, so how do we get back home? And she said, well, the train you just got off is going back to Holyhead, so you can go back on, and then you should be able to get into first class with your tickets, and that should be okay. And we were like, okay, that's cool. Then about 5 minutes before the train came in, she said, oh no, this is not your train, this is another one by Arriva Wales, which wasn't Virgin. She said, you can get on that train, but there's no guarantee there'll be seats, and it's packed, and there's no first class on there. So this again is an issue. There's a reason why we got first class in the first place, is to be able to travel on the train, and the fact that we had seat reservations again was so that we could travel on the train and there'd be no stress and no upset or worry. She said, don't take that train, take the next one, which is the Virgin train that you were supposed to be on. We said, okay, cool. So we waited, and we waited again for another 20 minutes, and then she came over and said to us, oh, this train that I was telling you to get on is actually merging with a train from Crewe, but it actually will have already full carriages, and I don't know if there's going to be room on this train, and it's also been delayed. You might as well stay for another 20 minutes and get the next train. And I said to her, well, will our tickets be okay on the next train? Will we get our first class tickets, and will we get our seat reservations? And she said, no, I can't guarantee that. And so we were at a loss. We're sat there in a train station. I'm freaking out because like this is not going to plan. This is a very distressing day. It's very upsetting. All day yesterday was ruined for me. I felt absolutely exhausted. I was completely freaking out. There was no way we were going to save this. Not to mention missing out a day of work because of the upset and the stress, and the travel was just horrendous at best. So we had to phone my partner's mother to come pick us all up, and so she had to drive for like an hour and a half, out of her own time, work time, and her fuel, to come and pick us up from Chester to guarantee us a safe route back that will accommodate my autism and the needs that we have as as additional needs in this specific circumstance. Now, I tweeted that Virgin Trains saying that I wasn't happy and that there was no guarantee for seats, and then they kind of contradicted it and said that there was and that everything would be fine. But I've just told you now the full story, and that is why we did it. It was the most distressing thing ever. Probably the pinnacle of it was the fact that when we got to Chester, they said the reason we couldn't carry on the train to Crewe and then obviously on to London was because there was maintenance work being done on the track. Well, we'd only been on the train for an hour and a half, so I'm not sure why they couldn't tell us before we got on the train so we can get a later train, at least, so we could get new reservations done and new seats booked, just before, we caused loads of stress. But no, 5 minutes or 3 minutes before kicking us off the train, they said that we have to get off here, and this is not acceptable. You can't do this to people. This doesn't work for people who are just neurotypical people living their daily lives. This is disruption in a way that's complete chaos. The bus service that they told us to take us to Crewe, it's just unbelievable. We went outside, we looked, and the queue was massive. People getting turned away. People couldn't even get on this bus. It's ridiculous. The bus would have been there at a wrong time, and then we would have been waiting another time for a different train, and that train wouldn't have got us into London at the right time, and we'd miss our car connection, and the whole thing would just be completely out of whack. Plus, all of the luggage and everything we had with us would be so difficult to try and pack onto this bus because it wasn't a big bus. It was a small kind of like 30-seater mini coach that drive around people around town. It was just not happening, and I don't travel on buses because of this specific reason. It's too stressful for me to travel on buses with other people and being so close to people like that. This is the reason we were on the train in the first place. This is what Virgin didn't understand in my tweet. I said that there wasn't an alternative for what I needed. They weren't accommodating for me. So my issue here is that Virgin have no contingency for people with autism on their service. This is unacceptable. I missed out on a day's work that I was doing for an autism charity, for an autism event, and I'm a person with autism. I had to come back. It ruined my entire day. It was very stressful and cost my family money. This is unacceptable. I'm not happy about this, and this needs to change. This is one of the things we're doing here on the Aspie world, is we're building a team. We're like 54,000 subscribers strong here, but we're building a huge group of people here who are going to be the main movers and shakers and motivational change in society to see things like the train service being accommodated for autism, like shops and stores and airports and shopping malls that will accommodate people with autism spectrum conditions, because this can't go on. Because I don't want anybody else to have to feel how I felt yesterday, because it was awful. And today I'm still not, I'm not doing what I was supposed to do today. This has been a ruined day. It's ruined 2 days. It's also going to ruin tomorrow, because I'm going to take tomorrow to kind of calm down and get over all of this. And it's just so stressful. I can't even explain. So Virgin, this video is for you, and I need a response.